Hello friends, welcome. Today's theme of discussion is cinema and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. In the earlier lecture on this theme, we talked about that how Dr. B.R. Ambedkar also influenced the filmmakers and how they made certain films which were dealing with the life of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. And we have also seen that in many of the films, though he may not have been directly portrayed, but at the same time his ideas, his inspirations, they have been portrayed in films, and some of the filmmakers many times they have also resorted to showing his photographs, his portraits in the films and talking about his ideologies in the films. So in this way we find that to the Indian filmmakers he has been an inspiration in that sense, and he has been portrayed by the filmmakers and how the characters they also have tried to in a way reflect his ideology. And many times we have seen that how we talk about films, that how they are an important influence in the society. So our perspective in this framework is to see that how Dr. Ambedkar, as we discussed in the earlier lectures as well, that how he was portrayed in various films which have been made on him, and also the struggles and the ultimate victory of Dr. Ambedkar in terms of his objectives, the kind of objectives which he talked about, and how we see that how cinema also in a way strives to replicate his experiences in the greater political arena, and he influenced many generations as well. So from that point of view we will also examine. In the earlier lectures we talked about some of the films, and today we will also talk about some more films from a historical perspective, and we will also try to analyze them in an appropriate context as well. So we find that the idea of social justice and social equality was integral to the ideas of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and we see that he talked about it. He also made a lot of contribution, that the various political parties which he established at different points of time, they were also talking about such ideas. And we find that various critics as well, they also realized that how Dr. Ambedkar emphasized some of the modern era rights like liberty, equality and fraternity, and he was a protector in that sense. He was a protector of these kinds of ideas which were being talked about by him. And we see he also used in a way the similitude of the Trinity, the three divine beings consolidated to communicate their whole net worth. And with regard to the liberty, equality and fraternity, he had these kinds of ideas, and he emphasized that their separation would be a direct violation of their Trinitarian oneness. So we find that scholars, those who have studied Dr. Ambedkar, and they have in a way argued that how his ideas they were relevant to not only the society of that time, but they have a lot of relevance even now. Wherever we find any kind of inequality or discrimination, we find that his ideas of social justice they have been very, very important. And scholars, when they have tried to in a way delve into the ideas of Dr. Ambedkar, they have also in a way talked about the various issues which he raised in the public life. And because of the raising of these kinds of issues, we find that he had that kind of a popularity, and later also we find that how he became popular in that sense. And Rodriguez has talked about that how liberty without equality would result in the hegemony of a few over many, and the individual drive would be killed by equality without freedom. So freedom is integral to that kind of equality, and liberty and equality would not develop into a normal stream of events without fraternity. So in a way, to put them into effect, a kind of a constable would be required, that all these kinds of things they are being put into practice as well, and we find that these kinds of ideas, when they were being reflected in the films, and how Dr. Ambedkar as well was very vocal about these kinds of issues. Some filmmakers like Ranjit displayed both the monument and the portrait of Ambedkar on the walls of the schools in Atakathi, which a film which he made in 2012. And we also see that Ranjit made some of the films in later times as well, and he took it a step further in 2016 film Kabali, by combining Gandhi and Ambedkar. So there were a lot of differences between Gandhi and Ambedkar, as we know from the political point of view, but at the same time they were also working together for the betterment as well. So in that sense, we have to see, or in a way realize, the individual differences, the ideological differences, but at the same time both of them in their own way tried to contribute to the national movement, as well as to the various social aspects which were there at that point of time. And we see that how these films, for example, we are talking about Kabali for that matter, or another film we find he included the Dalit Bahujan salutation Jai Bhim in the conversation in Kala, a film which was made in 2018, when a police officer joins a protest and revealed that he was a Dalit. So in that sense, we find that these kinds of films, they also in a way try to create that kind of an impact in the society. And moreover, we find a Buddhist Buddha Vihara, a Buddhist colony, was shown in an Indian movie. One can argue that there is a substantial depiction of Dr. Ambedkar in the films that overlooked him for quite some time on celluloid. And we also find that a number of films in Marathi, they have also been made on Dr. Ambedkar, Prakash Jadhav, Ramabai Bhimrao Ambedkar, a Marathi film in 2011, which dealt with Ambedkar's life and his wife Ramabai's contribution in keeping her husband motivated, was also made. And we see that how she supported her husband's goal of elevating the disadvantaged classes by standing by him like a pillar. So this was shown in this particular film. We see that such kind of portrayals definitely play an important role in terms of disseminating a lot of information about the kind of activities in which these people involved, and how their activities, their ideas, they were some source of inspiration for the generations of that particular period. So in this film, we find that how her opinions and beliefs, which influenced Ambedkar's conceptions of the independence movement, they are also being reflected, and how it also demonstrates that the two helped others who had been denied access to basic human needs for a long time, because Dr. Ambedkar was a votary of the idea of social justice and equality, and he in a way wanted a kind of a society in which everyone was treated equal. So in this way, it made a commendable effort in portraying Dr. Ambedkar. And when we see that how these films, they were trying to portray these ideals, and how Ambedkar's struggle for social justice and rights is shown in many other films as well. And some of the other films in contemporary times, which you see, Manjule, director Manjule explored contemporary caste subtleties in his award-winning Fendre, which was made in 2013, and Sarat in 2016. So we see that how Sarat became a very popular film, which was also talking about the caste distinctions which exist in the society, and it was a very bold movie. And though it was made in Marathi, but we find that how this film became popular in all over India. And apart from the issues which it raised, we find that it was a commercial success as well. So, the kind of emotions which this particular film tried to convey through the two young adults, and how their journey, though it was it met a very tragic end, but it raised those kinds of questions which are relevant to the society in today's times, and it was made in a very sensitive manner, which influenced a lot of people. That is why it became commercially successful as well. Then we see that how Ranjit regularly employs Dr. Ambedkar's name, likeness, slogans and other Dalit symbols in the framework of his films to give the story a significant social implication. So, filmmaker himself is also aware that what he is trying to do, what he is intending to do, and with this kind of subtleties which are being communicated through the story, we find that audience is not only gaining knowledge about that time, but we also find that audience is also becoming aware about what needs to be done in the society. Then we find that how the words of Dr. Ambedkar were highlighted in Narwade's film Jayanti in 2021 as a driving inspiration for the protagonist to develop into a bold, valiant person. So, we find that how the historical figures like Dr. Ambedkar and his ideas, they are some kind of a driving force for the later generations, and how people in contemporary times, they also have to develop those qualities where they can fight for their rights. And we find that some of the films which were not directly dealing with Dr. Ambedkar, but they were also reflecting the ideological position which was taken up by Dr. Ambedkar. Periyar, for example, in 2007, a Tamil film directed by Gyana Rajashekharan, depicts the views of social reformer and pragmatist Periyar E.V. Ramaswamy. Periyar was greatly influenced by Dr. Ambedkar, and it has been reported that they also met many times, and they were also in a way talking about the ideas of equality in that sense, and how Periyar was also a great influencer in that sense, that how he was able to influence so many people at that point of time through his ideas in that sense, because he had those ideas of a great social reformer. And it is also being said that how Periyar once told his followers that if I am no longer in the world, if you want to consider anyone as your father, consider Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar as your father and follow his teachings. And so, we find that the kind of mutual respect which they had for each other in that sense. And apart from this, we find that a number of films, for example, Shudra the Rising in Hindi in 2012, directed by Sanjeev Jaiswal, depicts the life of a Shudra and is dedicated to Dr. Ambedkar. So, how this film depicts the popular Bhim song Jai Jai Bhim. So, these kinds of picturizations, they have also in a way tried to communicate the ideas of Dr. Ambedkar and how he was fighting for the ideals for which he stood. Then another film, Journey of Samyak Buddha, made in 2013, directed by Praveen Damle, explores the life of Gautam Buddha and is based on Dr. Ambedkar's book, The Buddha and His Dhamma. And this film was dedicated to Dr. Ambedkar. So, we find that how, as we are aware that how in his later life Dr. Ambedkar turned to Buddhism, and we find that how he was influenced by the teachings of Gautam Buddha, and he also wrote about it, as I told you that he wrote a book, and how his journey in that sense was reflected in this particular film. Apart from that, we see a Kannada film, Ramabai, directed by M. Ranganath. It portrays the life of Dr. Ambedkar's wife, who was a consistent support to her in terms of ameliorating the condition of so many people, those who were victims of the kind of system which was prevailing. So, we find that how Dr. Ambedkar and his wife, both of them, they were playing an important role in terms of improving the situation of so many people, those who were disadvantaged, those who did not have those kinds of privileges. Then another film, Bole India Jai Bhim, in 2016, directed by Subodh Nagdeve, is based on Dr. Ambedkar's follower and social reformer N. Hardas. And the well-known greeting Jai Bhim, Victory to Bhim or oblique Ambedkar was started by Hardas. So, we find that how the disciples of Dr. Ambedkar, who in a way look towards him in that sense, that how he made a remarkable kind of contribution in terms of changing their situation. So, that was also, this was again a film on the follower of Dr. Ambedkar. And we also find that there have been other films as well. The film Jai Bhim, Victory to Bhim 2021, directed by T.J. Ganawel, is also an honest portrayal of the ideas of Dr. Ambedkar. And another film, Battle of Bhim Koregaon, in Hindi, directed by Ramesh Thete, is dedicated to Dr. Ambedkar. It is based on the Battle of Koregaon, which was fought on 1st January 1818. Arjun Rampal played the lead role of Syed Naik Inamdar, Meher warrior. So, we find that how these kinds of portrayals, they were talking about the kind of background of the Mahar community to which Dr. B.R. Ambedkar belonged. And also we find that such kind of portrayals also were talking about the ideas of Dr. Ambedkar. Then we find that Samvidhan Nirmata Dr. B.R. Ambedkar or Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar, a Hindi film in 2022, it again dealt with the life of Dr. Ambedkar. And we see that apart from this, there was another film called Newton, in which Rajkumar Rao starred, and it was also India's Oscar entry for 2017. It also features Dr. Ambedkar on the walls of the protagonist home. So, we find that how many of the films they were indirectly influenced by the ideas of Dr. Ambedkar, or using the portraits in those films to convey the ideas which Dr. Ambedkar had and how they got reflected in the films. And so, in that framework, we find that Dr. Ambedkar has been shown in the films directly as well as in an indirect manner as well. And a film called Jolly LLB 2 2017, Dr. Ambedkar's photo is visible alongside Mahatma Gandhi behind the educator's work table in his chamber. So, we find that how the kind of images, the kind of portraits of Dr. Ambedkar, they have been shown in the film, and this particular film was also a great success as well. So, these films definitely play an important role in terms of showing the influence of Dr. Ambedkar. And we find that how this particular picture is seen in various films, including Mukkabaz, which was made in 2017, Article 15 again, which was dealing with the issue of caste in 2019, then Sacred Games in 2018 and Raat Akeli in 2020, that how these kinds of ideas or his portrayal in that sense in form of a portrait or a photo, it became some kind of a recurrent theme or a presence in Indian cinema. So, such portrayals, such kind of pictures, such kind of portraits, etc., definitely made a contribution in the sense that when the people saw them on the screen, and we find that many of the films, they are now available on OTT, and many films are repeatedly shown on television, so they have more value in that sense that they have a repeat value and audience is seeing them again and again. So definitely they make a lot of contribution in that sense. And then there was a film called Jhund, in which Amitabh Bachchan acted and made by Nagraj Manjule. And we see that in this particular film as well, Dr. Ambedkar's photograph and his portrait was shown in the film. And this particular film, we see that how Amitabh Bachchan is trying to coach people from the disadvantaged section of society, those who did not have access to the kind of resources, and they had that kind of a talent that he made a team, a football team for them, and but they did not have the facilities, they did not have the access to the resources by which they could show their talent. So we find that this particular film also was an important contribution, and when bigger stars like Amitabh Bachchan, when they are part of such kind of pictures, such kind of movies and films, then definitely it has a wider reach in that sense, because more and more people are watching such kind of a cinema. So we in a way can argue that the ideology and politics of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar are manifested in his literary writings, historical records, and in the films and television serials that have been made on him. And we find that these films and television series, when they are dealing with his life and they are trying to discuss and analyze in a way the contribution which he made in terms of altering the socio-economic and the political fabric of the Indian society, that how his ideas, they have been dominant. And we also find that the way he was also an architect, or the main architect of the Indian Constitution, by being the chairman of the drafting committee. So that has also been pointed out in many of the films, that way we see that how he single-handedly played an important role in the framework of the making of the Constitution. And we see that the way he inspired so many people all along, and many of them not only revered him but worshipped him for his relentless fight for the social justice, and idolized him for giving them the confidence and courage to carry forward that journey, because he was some sort of an example to these people, and how when they followed his teachings, when they followed that kind of a motivation which he provided to them, then it made the lives of these people comparatively easier. So in this way we see that he made a lot of contribution, and how his contribution was also in a way recognized by the filmmakers, though comparatively late, because initially we do not see many films on Dr. Ambedkar, but I think a lot of films in the later times, especially 80s, 90s, we find that filmmakers now are trying to in a way show Dr. Ambedkar and his ideas in the films, and also, as I told you, some of the TV series as well, they were trying to portray what Dr. Ambedkar stood for and for his ideas as well. So with this, I'd like to end the discussion. Thank you very much.